सर्वस्य श्री कृष्णाय नमोस्तु मे मत्येकबंधो मत्संगिन मद्गुरो मन्महादन मन्निस्तारः मद्वाक्य मत्तानंद नमोस्तुते असाधु साधु दादायिन अदि निचोक्षताकर हा नमुंजकटाक्षिन्मा प्रेमनगत गंधयोस्पुर श्रीमद्भागवतम की जय श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. Hare Krishna. Welcome to everybody. So we are in the second chapter. What is the verse number? We started second chapter, na Prabhu? First, I think we have to complete one or two slokas, correct? Yes.
Yes, last three slokas, I think.
Yes. 38, 39,
Yes.
like that. Fine. So we will continue from, we read 37 actually. Then we have to continue from 38 actually. So Srimad Bhagavatam, canto number 2, chapter number 1, sloka number 38 actually. Yan asav isvara vigrahasya ya sanniveshaka kadido mayade sandaryade asminopusi savishte manaka swabuddhya na yado asti kinchit. Yes.
Translation. Yes. I have thus explained to you the gross material gigantic conception of the personality of Godhead. One who seriously desires liberation concentrates his mind on this form of the Lord, because there is nothing more than this in the material world. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.10, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has verily explained that the material nature is only an order-carrying agent of His. She is one of the different potencies of the Lord, and she acts under His direction only. As the Supreme Transcendental Lord, He simply casts a glance over the material principle, and thus the agitation of matter begins. And the resultant actions are manifested one after another by 6 kinds of gradual differentiations. All material creation is moving in that way, and thus it appears and disappears in due course. Roji, further also?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Less intelligent persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot accommodate the thoughts of this inconceivable potency of the Lord, Shri Krishna, by which he appears just like a human being, Bhagavad Gita 9.11. His appearance in the material world as one of us is also his causeless mercy upon the fallen souls. He is transcendental to all material conceptions, but by his unbounded mercy upon his pure devotees, he comes down and manifests himself as the personality of Godhead. Materialistic philosophers and scientists are too much engrossed with atomic energy and the gigantic situation of the universal form, and they offer respect more seriously to the external phenomena feature of material manifestations than to the nominal principle of spiritual existence. The transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the reduction of such materialistic activities, and it is very difficult to conceive that the Lord can be simultaneously localized and all-pervasive, because the materialistic philosophers and scientists think of everything in terms of their own experience. Because they are unable to accept the personal feature of Supreme Lord, the Lord is kind enough to demonstrate the Virat feature of his transcendental form. And herein, Srila Shukdev Goswami has vividly described this form of the Lord. He concludes that there is nothing beyond this gigantic feature of the Lord. None of the materialistic thoughtful men can go beyond this conception of the gigantic form. The minds of the materialistic men are flickering and constantly changing from one aspect to another. Therefore, one is advised to think of the Lord by thinking of any part of his gigantic body, and by one's intelligence, one can think of him in any manifestation of material world. The forest, the hill, ocean, the man, the animal, the demigod, the bird, the beast, or anything else. Each and every item of the material manifestation entails a part of the body of the gigantic form, and thus the flickering mind can be fixed in the Lord only and nothing else. This process of concentrating on the different bodily parts of the Lord will gradually diminish the demonic challenges of godlessness and bring about gradual development of devotional service to the Lord. Everything being a part and parcel of the complete whole, the neophyte student will gradually realize the hymns of Ishopanishad, which state that Supreme Lord is everywhere, and thus he will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. This sense of God-mindedness will diminish one's pride in challenging the existence of God. Thus one can learn to show respect to everything, for all things are part and parcel of the Supreme Body. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So it's a summary study actually. So Krishna, the same points are explained again and again. The Supreme Lord has a transcendental body, and it's very difficult for the common materialistic class of people to understand the nature of the transcendental body. At one instance, So Krishna makes arrangement for gradual understanding of his transcendental body also. So Prabhupada writes very nicely that materialistic philosophers and modern day scientists are too much engrossed with the atomic energy and the gigantic situation offered by external energy of the Supreme Lord. So naturally, the Lord agrees to manifest his form shown through the via medium of material energy also. That's a special mercy of the Lord for the neophyte neophyte spiritualist. So in Bhagavad Gita also, we can see that in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked the Supreme Lord to exhibit his Virat form so that common people can have access in understanding his form. So naturally, the Lord agreed for that, and he showed the Virat form also, so that ordinary neophyte students got benefited. So naturally, at the same time, here finally it is said that in the Upanishad, which state that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, and thus he will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. By appreciating the broad form of the Lord, the neophyte also does not commit any offense for the transcendental form of the Lord. So it is naturally, for two purposes, the Lord exhibits broad form: to give mercy for the neophyte devotees and to challenge the demonic incarnations, so-called incarnations, who proclaim themselves as God, so that common people will get saved from the cheatings of these demonic service. Right. Sloka number 39. Sa sarvadi vritti anubhuda sarva atma yada swapna janekshidaiha tam sadhyamananda bimbajeda nanyatra sajjet yada atma padaha. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Translation.
Hare Krishna.
One should concentrate his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone distribute himself in so many manifestations, just as ordinary persons create thousands of manifestations in dreams. One must concentrate the mind on him, the only all blissful absolute truth. Otherwise, one will be misled and will cause his own degradation. Purport as well, Brahma?
Yes, Mother, that is one or two paragraphs. Two paragraphs.
Okay, purport. In this verse, the process of devotional service is indicated by the great Goswami, Srila Sukadeva. He tries to impress upon us that instead of diverting our attention to several branches of self-realization, we should concentrate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the supreme object of realization, worship, and devotion. Self-realization is, as it were, offering a fight for eternal life against the material struggle for existence, and therefore, by the illusory grace of the external energy, the yogi or the devotee is faced with many allurements which can entangle a great fighter again in the bondage of material existence. A yogi can attain miraculous successes in material achievements such as anima and lagima, by which one can become more minute than the minutest or lighter than the lightest, or in the ordinary sense, one may achieve material benediction in the shape of wealth and women. But one is warned against such allurements because entanglement again in such illusory pleasure means degradation of self and further imprisonment in the material world. By this warning, one should follow one's vigilant intelligence only. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thanks. So naturally, all the neophytes candidates of spiritual life are advised to meditate on the Virat form of the Lord. Because if you start meditating on the Virat form of the Lord, there is nothing except the Virat form of the Lord. The Virat form of the Lord covers all the material features of this material energy. So Prabhupada writes beautifully that the neophyte translators like yogis, jnanis face many difficulties in their advancement of spiritual life. Especially yogis, they develop yogic powers. If they don't have the practice of meditating on the Virat form of the Lord, they will try to misuse the achieved yogic powers, thinking of independence from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if they learn to meditate on the Virat form of the Lord, they can understand everything in connection with the Supreme Lord. As a result, they will not degrade themselves. So by seeing the broad form of the Lord, one can get the realization that whatever he sees is actually seen by the Supreme Lord already. So naturally, he is under the constant vigilance of the Supreme Lord. So naturally, he will act in a very careful way. Finally speaking, in this particular verse, it is advised that all the followers of the different parts like yoga, jnana, or the meditators of the broad form of the Lord should come to the understanding that Lord Narayana is transcendental to the creation. So he has a transcendental body, and by his mercy, this universe got created. The universe enters in him at a time of creation. So naturally, all are expected to develop their relationship with the Supreme Lord in the transcendental form by the via medium of devotional service. So in that conclusive way, though in the beginning itself, Sukadeva recommended the process of devotional service, again, he diverted the subject matter to some extent. He explained the features of broad form of the Lord. And finally, he brought back to the same conclusion that everybody should render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everybody should concentrate only on the Supreme Lord. That point is nan yatra sadyet yada atmapadaha. Okay. So they continues his instruction in this manner. Krama Mukti. This is known as Krama Mukti, gradual elevation. Yevam puradharanayatmayonir nashtam sumridim pratyavaruddhaya dushta tada sagrajedam amoga drishtir yada kiyat prak vivasaya buddhihi. Yes. Somebody can read.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
This chapter 2, the first sloka, onward.
Yes.
Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, formerly, prior to the manifestation of the cosmos, Lord Brahma, by meditating on the Virat Rupa, regained his lost consciousness by appeasing the Lord. Thus, he was able to rebuild the creation as it was before.
Yes, if you
Purport by
can-
divine
yes,
Srila Prabhupada.
yeah, if you can
The
read fast,
example
it will-
cited, sorry Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
The example cited herein, Sri Brahmaji is one of the forgetfulness. Brahmaji is the incarnation of one of the mundane attributes of the Lord. Being the incarnation of the passion mode of material nature, he is empowered by the Lord to generate the beautiful material manifestation. Yet, due to his being one of the numerous living entities, he is apt to forget the art of his creative energy. This forgetfulness of a living being, beginning from the Brahma down to the lowest insignificant ant, is a tendency which can be counteracted by the meditation on the Virat Rupa of the Lord. This chance is available in the human form of life, and if a human being follows the instruction of Srimad Bhagavatam, begins to meditate upon the Virat Rupa, then revival of his pure consciousness and counteraction of the tendency to forget his eternal relationship with the Lord can follow simultaneously. And as soon as this forgetfulness is removed, the Vaibhava Buddhi, as mentioned here and in the Bhagavad Gita 241, follows at once. This ascertained knowledge of the living being leads to the loving service to the Lord, which the living being requires. The kingdom of God is unlimited. Therefore, the number of the assisting hand of the Lord is also unlimited. The Bhagavad Gita 13:14 asserts that the Lord has his hands, legs, eyes, and mouth in every nook and corner of his creation. This means that the expansion of differentiated parts and parcel called jivas or living entities are assisting hands of the Lord, and all of them are meant for rendering a particular pattern of service to the Lord. The conditioned soul, even in the position of the Brahma, forgets this by the influence of illusory material energy generated out of false egoism. One can counteract such false egoism by invoking God consciousness. Liberation means getting out of the slumber of forgetfulness and becoming situated in the real loving service of the Lord, as exemplified in case of Brahma. The service of Brahma is the sample of service in liberation, distinguished from the so-called altruistic services full of mystic and forgetfulness. Liberation is never inaction, but service without human mistakes. Srila Prabhupada ki. Yeah.
Thanks for Hare Krishna. So in the previous chapter, Sukadeva Goswami explained about the meditation which should be taken very seriously by the neophyte devotees on the broad form of the Lord for the purpose of regaining their consciousness. Advanced devotees have the tendency to directly to meditate on the transcendental form of the Lord. So actually, the question is that whether this seems to be a very theoretical theory, whether there is any example who got benefit by meditating on the broad form of the Lord. Surely, many got benefited by meditating on the broad form of Lord. In fact, Lord Brahma himself got the same experience. So Brahma is a chief living creature of this material world. All the Brahmas are not pure devotees of the Lord. We have Jnana Mishra Brahmas, Karma Mishra Brahmas, but they render their service to the Supreme Personality of the Godhead in the matter of creation. So here is one case. Brahma is really a great devotee, but he renders service in association with the material energy, especially mode of passion. So naturally, since he is a jiva, he also has a tendency to forget. So naturally, he was very serious in his service of creation, but at the same time, in certain point of time, he lost his intelligence, memory of the techniques of creation. It may happen to anybody, everybody also. Like we all do Bhakti Vaibhava courses, we study many things, but ultimately memory comes from by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes we all have the tendency to forget. So naturally, such an event awkward actually. Then Brahma, by his meditation on the broad form of the Lord, he revived his forgetfulness. He revived his consciousness. So Prabhupada glorifies the service of Lord Brahma also. He compares the transcendental service of Lord Brahma to the so-called materialistic service done by the modern day philanthropical activities, philanthropical philosophers. They do services in bodily platform, like patriots, national leaders, etc., etc. But Brahma, he did the service of creation so that jivas, when they achieve the human form of body, can render service to the Supreme Lord. So naturally, his service is glorified here so much. Can anybody remember one more instant in the life of Brahma in which he forget Vedas also? Here by meditating broad form of the Lord, he revived his conscience. In that case, the Lord helped by taking one form of incarnation. Anybody remember?
Is it a Brahma Vimohan Leela, Prabhuji?
Brahma Mohana Leela is different. In Brahma Mohana Leela, he misunderstood Krishna's transcendental identity by the will of the Lord. But in another Leela, the same kind of event happened actually. What happened? Brahma, during his night, he also went for a sleep. He had Vedas in his hand, but demands Madhu and Kaidava. They stole the Vedas. Correct? He forgot about the Vedic knowledge for some time being. Then the Lord took the form of Vatsha and he killed Madhu and Kaidava. He revived the Vedas also. So it happens even to such a great personality. Then what to speak of ourselves?
Prabhuji, what is the form of the Lord that he took?
What's the Prabhu?
Form of the Lord, which form did the Lord took?
Matsya happened in different timings, but that is one kind of Matsya. Or sometimes it is said that it is Hayagriva Avatar also, like that. Sloka 2. Sabdasyehi Brahmana Yesha Panda Yen Namabir Diyayadidir Apartaihi Pari Brahmam Statrana Vindade Artan Maya Maye Vasanaya Sayanaha. Hare Krishna.
I'll read Prabhuji. Translation. By way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusionary pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. Herbert. The conditioned soul is always engaged in laying out plans for happiness within the material world, even up to the end of the universal limit. He is not even satisfied with the available amenities on this planet Earth, where he has exploited the sources of nature to the best of his ability. He wants to go to the moon or the planet Venus to exploit resources there. But the Lord has warned us in Bhagavad Gita 8.16 about the worthlessness of the innumerable planets of this universe, as well as those planets within our other systems. There are innumerable universes and also innumerable planets in each of them, but none of them is immune to the chief miseries of material existence, namely the pangs of birth, the pangs of death, the pangs of old age, and the pangs of disease. The Lord says that even the topmost planet, known as Brahmalok or Satyalok, and what to speak of other planets like the heavenly planets, is not a happy land for residential purposes due to the presence of material pangs, as above mentioned. Conditioned souls are strictly under the laws of fruitive activities, and as such, they sometimes go up to the Brahmalok and again come down to Patalok, as if they were unintelligent children on a merry-go-round. The real happiness is in the kingdom of God, where no one has to undergo the pangs of material existence. Therefore, the Vedic ways of fruitive activities for the living entities are misleading. One thinks of a superior way of life in this country or that, or on this planet or another. But nowhere in the material world can he fulfill his real desire of life, namely eternal life, full intelligence, and complete bliss. Indirectly, Srila Sukadeva Goswami affirms that Maharaj Parikshit, in the last stage of life, should not desire to transfer himself to the so-called heavenly planets, but should prepare himself to go back home, back to Godhead. None of the material planets nor the amenities available there for living conditions is everlasting. Therefore, one must have a factual reluctance to enjoy such temporary happiness as they afford. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, very important instruction, correct? In the beginning itself, he gave a very clear instruction, actually. Tasmat Sankirtana Vishnu. Then he gave instructions for the neophyte people who are there. He advised them to concentrate on the broad form of the Lord, which is exhibited in material energy. But finally, in the last sloka of the previous chapter, he gave the conclusion also that ultimately everybody should concentrate only the Supreme Lord in the direction of devotion service. Here, again, one more important instruction is given to Parikshit Maharaj. Because in that assembly, before the arrival of Sukadev, when Parikshit spoke about his situation, different people gave different opinions actually. Somebody told him to follow the process of Karma Kanda, somebody told him to follow the process of Prayachita, like that, etc., etc. So naturally, by understanding the point that in that assembly, Sukadev saw the presence of some Karma Kandavadis also. So naturally, what is the mood of Karma Kandavadis? They want to perform the ritualistic activities of the Vedas very nicely. Vedavada Radhaha Parthaha. But their goal is that by the performance of ritualistic activities or performance of Vedic fruity sacrifices, they want to achieve greater positions within this material world or higher positions in the heavenly planetary systems. So here, Sukadev establishes the path of pure bhakti. There is no point in reaching higher planetary systems at all. Krishna already describes about the fruitlessness of going to the higher planetary system. What is an important verse? From the topmost world to the downmost world, everything in the material world is full of miseries. What is that verse? Can anybody say?
Brahma Bhuvanaloka.
Correct. Tell Mohammed fully. That's the correct one.
Brahma Bhuvanaloka Punaravartina Arjuna Mamupechatu Kaunteya Punarjanmana Vidyate.
That's the point. Brahma Bhuvanaloka Punaravartina Arjuna. Nobody is going to come back. Everybody is going to come back here. So actually, it's a useless waste of time. That's on the contrary, we should develop Vyasayatmiha Buddhi. Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, we should develop Vyasayatmiha Buddhi. We should be completely determined in achieving success in the process of pure devotional service. This Sabdashihi Brahmanaha, And that is the part, that's the same thing told in Bhagavad Gita as Vedavada Radhaka Partha. They are also followers of Vedas. Here, Brahmanaha Sabdasya means Vedic sound basically. But they follow the process of Karmakanda, which will, because the Vedas also cheat people. Vedas are Kalpaka Vrikshas. They satisfy the material needs of the people also. So Vedavada Radha Partaka, Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita that the flowery languages of the Vedas promise promotion to the heavenly planetary systems. But ultimately, they cheat you. One has to be very careful. The same point is explained here. Text number 3. Ataka Kavir Namusiyavat Tartaha Syat Apramatto Vivasaya Buddhihi. The same word is used, Vivasaya Buddhihi. Siddhe Anyattartena Yadeda Etra Parishramam Tatra Samikshamanaha. At least one paragraph in the purport.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
For this reason, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life while in the world of names. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things, being competent to perceive practically that all such endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. Purport. The Bhagavata Dharma, or the cult of Srimad Bhagavatam, is perfectly distinct from the way of productive activities which are considered by the devotees to be merely a waste of time. The whole universe, or for that matter all material existence, is moving on as Jagat, simply for planning business to make one's position very comfortable or secure, although everyone sees that this existence is neither comfortable nor secure and can never become comfortable or secure at any stage of development. Those who are captivated by the illusory advancement of material civilization, following the way of phantasmagoria, are certainly madmen. The whole material creation is a jugglery of names only. In fact, it is nothing but a bewildering creation of matter like earth, water, and fire. The buildings, furniture, cars, bungalows, mills, factories, industries, peace, war, or even the highest perfection of material science, namely atomic energy and electronics, are all simply bewildering names of material elements with their concomitant reactions of the three modes. Since the devotee of the Lord knows them perfectly well, he is not interested in creating unwanted things for a situation which is not at all reality, but simply names of no more significance than the babble of sea waves. The great kings, leaders, and soldiers fight with one another in order to perpetuate their names in history. They are forgotten in due course of time, and they make a place for another era in history. But the devotee realizes how much history and historical persons are useless products of flickering time. The fruitive workers aspires after a big fortune in the matter of wealth, women, and worldly adoration, but those who are fixed in perfect reality are not at all interested in such false things. For them, it is all a waste of time, since every
Thanks,
second...
Mataji. Enough, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thanks.
Hare Krishna.
Fine. And the whole purport goes in that particular flow. The same sloka number 3 and 2 and 3, they are continuation of the same meaning. So naturally, instead of wasting our time in promoting ourselves to the higher planetary systems, one should develop the Vyavasyatmika Buddhi in the process of pure devotional service. So naturally, Srila Prabhupada speaks about the realizations of the devotees in regard to the material world. For a non-devotee, this material world is a happy place, very important place, very valuable place, worthful place. He gives so much importance for body, sensual enjoyment, and his promotion to higher planetary system. The same mood is here nowadays also. People want to go to Chandra, the planet of Chandra, by mechanical means. People are after name, fame, they build many buildings, castles, etc. But from the perspective of devotee, it's a sheer wastage of time. Devotees does not want to waste even a minute without dovetailing their time in the process of pure devotional service. Because in this human form of life, rarely we get chance for rendering devotional service to the Supreme Lord. But in the modern day demonic society, surely all the plan makings are done in the wrong direction, in the opposite direction. So here Sukadev recommends a different mode of life. Sukadev himself is interested in accepting only a few things of materialism which is needed for the process of devotion service. So Prabhupada notes down that when Parishit was a great king, Sukadev never had the desire to go there and meet him. So he wanted a different mode of life. He will explain that from sloka number 4 onwards actually. So 4-5 verses he will explain how devotees should lead a life within this material world. Sloka 4. Satyam kisiddhavu kim kashippoka prayasay vago svasiddhehi ubarganai kim sadi anjalavukum urudana patriya tik valakaladau sadikim duhulai hai. Yes. Krishna, somebody can read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
4. When there are ample earthly flats to lie on, what is necessity of cots and beds? When one can use his own arms, what is the necessity of a pillow? When one can use the palms of his hand, what is the necessity of varieties of utensils? When there is ample covering or skin of the trees, what is the necessity of the clothing?
One
Clothing.
paragraph you can read.
Yes. The necessities of life for the protection and comfort of the body must not be unnecessarily increased. Human energy spoil in a vain search after such illusion happiness. If one is able to lie down on the floor, then why should one endeavor to get a good bed stead or soft cushion to lie on? If one can rest without any pillow and make use of the soft arms endowed by nature, there is no necessity of searching after a pillow. If we make study of the general life of animals, we can see that they have no intelligence for building big house, furniture, and other household paraphernalia, yet they maintain a healthy life by lying down on the open land. They do not know how to cook or prepare foodstuff, yet they still live healthy lives more easily than the human being. This does not mean that human civilization should revert to animal life and that the human being should live naked in the jungles without any culture, education, and sense of morality. An intelligent human cannot live the life of an animal. Rather, man should try to utilize his intelligence in arts and science, poetry, and philosophy. In such a way, he can further the progressive march of human civilization. But here the idea given by Srila Sukdev Goswami is that the reserved energy of human life, which is far superior to that of animals, should simply be utilized for self-realization.
Thanks for Hare Krishna. Enough, Prabhu. The whole flow is same actually. Yes. So Sukadev condemns the idea of karmakanda, which the flowery parts of the Vedas, which motivates you to go to the heavenly planetary systems for the purpose of enjoying higher standard of sense enjoyment. On the other hand, human form of life is meant for very simple living. Surely, human beings are endowed with higher level of intelligence, but that intelligence should not be used for the purpose of expanding the limits of our sensual enjoyment. On the other hand, we should lead a very simple way of life, and that intelligence should be used for the purpose of developing our Krishna consciousness, not material arrangements. As Prabhupada notes that the progressive civilization or modern day civilization is full of many facilities, but actually these facilities are detrimental for our progress in spiritual life. So Prabhupada noted that all the Goswamis of Vrindavan, they left their higher positions as the ministers of Bengal state They came to Vrindavan and they stayed underneath one tree every night. But at the same time, they were able to write so many wonderful spiritual literatures explaining the signs of Krishna consciousness. So naturally, simple living, by leading a simple way of life, surely you will develop so much of Krishna consciousness. So Sukadeva recommended that mode of life. The mood of Karmagandis are completely opposite. They want to become more and more and more and more opulent. Here, a different mode of life is recommended by Sukadev for reaching spiritual world. Text number 5. Shurani kimbadina sandhi dishan diviksha naivangri paka parabrahasari dobi ashishyam ruddagukha kim ajidovadi no pashanna kasmat bajandika vayodana durmadandan.
Translation. Are there no tall clothes lying on the common road? Do the trees which exist for maintaining others no longer give alms in charity? Do the rivers being dried up no longer supply water to the thirsty? Are the caves of the mountains now closed? Or above all, does the Almighty Lord not protect the fully surrendered souls? Why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard earned wealth? Purport. The renounced order of life is never meant for begging or living in the cost of others as a parasite. According to the dictionary, a parasite is a sycophant who lives at the cost of society without making any contribution to that society. The renounced order is meant for contributing something substantial to society and not depending on the earnings of the householders. On the contrary, acceptance of alms in the householders by the bona fide mendicant is an opportunity afforded by the saint for the tangible benefit of the donor. In the Sanatana Dharma institution, alms given to the mendicant is part of householders' duty, and it is advised in the scriptures that the householder should treat the mendicants as their family children and should provide them with food, clothing, etc. without being asked. Pseudo-mendicants therefore should not take advantage of the charitable disposition of the faithful householders. The first
Thanks, Prabhu. The whole flow is same. I will explain. So what's the whole basic idea? Sadhus should learn to live dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. They should not be so much interested in accumulation of wealth. Then they cannot protect their spiritual life at all, spiritual consciousness at all. So, of course, in Varna and Asrama, we have 4 Varnas like Brahmana Varna, Kshatriya Varna, and then Gragasthas, then, Brahmana Varna, Kshatriya Varna, Vaishyas and Sudras. Then we have 4 ashrams, Brahmachari, Gragastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasis. So naturally, Gragasthas were well trained to help Brahmacharis and Sannyasis in this respect. And they should consider Brahmacharis and Sannyasis as their own children. That is there. But at the same time, the sadhus should not take advantage of the cultural mood of ideal Gragasthas and family people also. They should not take so much benefit in that manner also. Just like Prabhupada, again and again, he speaks about the ideal life of 6 Goswamis who lived in Vrindavan. And they all stayed underneath one tree and they eat very limited food. They went to the homes of Sukadeva Goswami himself went to the homes of householder only for the purpose of collecting a handful amount of milk in the evening. Modern day scenery is so much different actually. If you see in India, sadhus have more wealth, opulent cars, and opulent facilities than Gragastha devotees. It's not good at all. In one sense, if you want to become so rich, you should become a sadhu in India, at least so-called sadhu in India. It's a good business. Better if you want to earn so much money with limited capacity, one should become a sadhu, so-called sadhu. Crores of money, you cannot imagine, especially here in South India. You can see Nityananda Paramahamsa. He is from Tamil Nadu, here near one place known as Tiruvannamalai. Actually, he came to ISKCON to practice spiritual life. He was, before coming to Mayapur Institute for the sake of teaching, I was a temple president in South India in one place known as Velu. So this Nityananda Paramahamsa studied in that area. We met one polytechnic chairman. He's friendly with ourselves. Then he told that this Nityananda Paramahamsa, when he was a young man, he studied in that polytechnic. He was not a good student at all. He was not a bright student at all. Later on, he went to Chennai. He stayed in ISKCON Chennai for some time, old ISKCON Chennai, just for 1 week. He was not able to sustain the simple austerities of ISKCON life. Then he went to Bangalore. Bangalore is a place of businessmen for all India, all Indians. It's a multilinguistic state, city of India. North Indians are there, South Indians are there, Marathis are there, Andhra peoples are there, Tamil people are there, Malayalis are there, everybody is there. Everybody can go there and earn money. So he also went there and started some spiritual institution, which grow like anything. Now he has so much money. He has purchased the individual islands near Mexico. So this is a scenery in modern day Kali Yuga. Sadhus earn so much money. And people in India, people got the sentimentalism to give money for sadhus. And they gave so much of donation for so-called sadhus like Nityananda Paramahamsa. So this goes on. So both sides should develop the culture. The sadhus should learn to live completely based on the mercy of Supreme Lord. Prabhupada gives the example of Thakur, Haridas Thakur. He was staying in a cave. One snake was also living there. Then Haridas Thakur didn't want to disturb that particular snake. But the Lord gave the instruction in such a way that the snake gave place for Haridas Thakur and left that particular place. So in that way, a sadhu should depend completely on the Lord. So whatever he has, of course, by the mercy of the Lord, he may be able to collect so much of donation. But whatever donation he collects, immediately he should dedicate, he should give all the donations for the development of Krishna conscious movement. That should be the mood of a brahmachari, sannyasi, like that. But at the same time, one cannot imitate the high standards of Goswamis also. One has to be a little careful also. Suiting to the level of his spiritual advancement, he should practice different kinds of austerities. Surely he has to practice austerities, but to the level of his spiritual advancement. He cannot imitate the spiritual practice of Goswamis also. But the goal should be like that, but gradually one should move towards a particular goal. That should be also there. Text number 6. Yevam svachitte svadaye vasiddha atma priyo artha bhagavan anandaha tam nirvritto yadartho vajeda samsara hedu paramachayatra.
Thus, being fixed, one must render service unto the Supreme Super Soul situated in one's own heart by his omnipotency, because he is the Almighty Personality of Godhead, eternal and unlimited. He is the ultimate goal of life, and by worshipping him, one can end the cause of the conditioned state of existence. Shall I read purport, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, at least one paragraph.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 18.61, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is the all-pervading, omnipresent Super Soul. Therefore, one who is a yogi can worship only him because he is the substance and not illusion. Every living creature is engaging in the service of something else. A living being's constitutional position is to render service, but in the atmosphere of Maya or illusion, or the conditional state of existence, the conditioned soul seeks the service of illusion. A conditioned soul works in the service of his temporary body, bodily relatives like the wife and the children, and the necessary paraphernalia for maintaining the body and bodily relations, such as the house, land, wealth, society, and country. But he does not know that all such renderings of service are totally illusory. As we have discussed many times before, this material world is itself an illusion, like a mirage in the desert. In the desert, there is an illusion of water, and the foolish animals become entrapped by such an illusion and run after water in the desert, although there is no water at all. But because there is no water in the desert, one does not conclude that there is no water at all. The intelligent person knows well that there is certainly a water in the seas and oceans. But such vast reservoirs of water are far, far away from the desert. One should therefore search for water in the vicinity of seas and oceans, and not in the desert.
Thanks
Every
for the
one of us,
direction. Enough,
Hare
Mataji. The whole flow is like that. So naturally, Sri Prabhupada speaks so much about the mode of life in the modern day civilization. Here, Sukadeva gives very heavy instructions. Evam swachitte swadayeva saddha. Eva. One should concentrate only on the super soul, only on the Almighty Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should try to achieve happiness only by taking shelter under Him. So naturally, Prabhupada writes a long purport. Generally speaking, people in this material world, they are after illusory happiness, just like animals get cheated by seeing the mirage in the desert. In the same way, conditioned souls wants to enjoy the so-called happiness of this materialistic world. So one should not lead such a life of self-cheating. This material world is full of miseries. As we know that it has have problems of birth, death, old age, and disease. So naturally, one should try to get out of this material creation. Prabhupada gives the example of a baby in the lap of a mother. The mother is attached to baby, baby is attached to the mother. That is the ideal situation. But when the child grows up, because since it has developed so many sense gratificatory tendencies, it wants to go here and there. So in the same way, we should not get diverted by the arrangements of the materialistic energy. We should get attached to our original father and mother, like that. So Prabhupada attacks the mood of materialism by writing a long purport. On the other hand, we all should be interested in the process of self-realization. It's really a very dangerous life in the modern day civilization. We all may fall victim to the power of materialistic energy in the modern day civilization at any time, like this. Kastantu anadritya paranuchinda prate pasun asadim nama kriyat pashyan janam padidam vaidaranya subha karmajam paridaban dushana.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Who else but the translation? Who else but the gross materialist would neglect such transcendental thought and take to the non-permanent names only, seeing the mass of people fall in the river of suffering as a
Mataji, very
consequence
less
of,
sound, Mataji.
the consequence of accruing the result of their own work. In the Vedas, it is said that persons who are attached to the demigods to the exclusion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are like the animals who follow the herdsman even though they are taken to the slaughterhouse. The materialists, like animals, also do not know how they are being misdirected by neglecting the transcendental thought of the Supreme Person. No one can remain vacant of thought. It is said that an idle brain is a devil's workshop, because a person who cannot think in the right way must think of something which may bring about disaster. The materialists are always worshipping such minor demigods, although this is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita 7:20. As long as a person is illusioned by material gains, he petitions the respective demigods to draw some particular benefit which is, after all, illusory and non-permanent. The enlightened transcendentalist is not captivated by such illusory things. Therefore, he is always absorbed in the transcendental thought of the Supreme in different stages of realization, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. In the previous verse, it is suggested that one should think of the Super Soul, which is one step higher than the impersonal thought of Brahman, and it was suggested in the case of contemplating the Virat Rupa of the personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Thanks, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So here again, the same points are explained. One should not waste his human form of life for achieving non-permanent things. On the other hand, one should develop attachment for the super soul, either super soul or Virat form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because within this material world, we all are suffering, correct? the residents of Sargoloka also suffer. The residents of earthly planetary systems also suffer. So one should not waste his time so much. So from sloka number 6 and 7, the importance is given for meditating on the super soul form of the Lord. So naturally, from sloka number 8 onwards, we will study about the descriptions of the super soul. What are the dimensions? What is the color of the super soul? What is the color of the form of the Lord living in Paramatma like that? Ketchitvadehandar hridayavakashe pradeshamatram purusham vashandam sadrubujam kanja ratanga shanga gadadaram dharanaya sumarandi. Yes. Eight. Hare Krishna.
Others conceive of the personality of Godhead residing within the body in the region of the heart and measuring only 8 inches, with 4 hands carrying a lotus, a wheel of a chariot, and conch shell and a club, respectively. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
The all-pervading personality of Godhead resides as Paramatma in the heart of each and every living entity. The measurement of the localized personality of Godhead is estimated to expand from the ring finger to the end of the thumb, more or less 8 inches. The form of the Lord described in this verse with distribution of different symbols, beginning from the lower right hand up and down to the lower left hand and lotus wheel of the chariot, conch shell and club respectively, is called Janardana, or the plenary portion of the Lord who controls the general mass. There are many other forms of the Lord with varied situations of the symbols of lotus, conch shell, etc., and they are differently known as Purushottama, Achyuta, Narasimha, Trivikrama, Rishikesha, Keshava, Madhava, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshana, Sridhara, Vasudeva, Damodara, Janardana, Narayana, Hari, Padmanabha, Vamana, Madhusudana, Govinda, Krishna, Vishnumurti, Adhokshaja, and Upendra. The 24 forms of the localized personality of Godhead are worshipped in different parts of the planetary system. And in each system, there is an incarnation of the Lord having a different Vaikuntha planet in the spiritual sky, which is called the Paravyoma. There are many other hundreds and scores of different forms of the Lord, and each and every one of them has a particular planet in the spiritual sky, of which this material sky is only a fragmental offshot. The Lord exists as Purusha, or the male enjoyer, although there is no comparing him to any male form in the material world. But all such forms are Advaita, non-different from one another. And each of them is eternally young. The young Lord with 4 hands is nicely decorated as described below.
Thanks, Mataji. So the descriptions of the in the previous chapter, we studied about the description of the Virat form. So here in this chapter, from sloka number 8 onwards, we study about the descriptions of the super soul living as Paramatma in our heart. So he has 4 hands. So he has a dimension of 8 inches. So he carries sun, sakara, all these symbols in his hands. So depending upon the position of the 4 symbols in different hands, he has different forms known as Purushottama, Achyuta, Narasimha, etc., which all are worshipable deities in different forms of the Paravyoma, Vaikuntha. So he is Purusha because he is the enjoyer, but he is not a so-called materialistic Purusha that we see in the material world. He is a transcendental enjoyer. Sloka number 9.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, in the Krishna book, Prabhupada writes that the size of super soul is like the size of the thumb.
Yes.
And Prabhuji, there are certain living entities.
Yeah, little difference is there, Prabhu. I studied in another place. It is 10 inches also. Here 8 inches are there. Like that. Small. I also remember that particular point. But basically, this will come around 8 inches only. That some thumb size. Are there distance from this finger to here. Both are same actually.
And
More or
Prabhuji,
less.
there are certain living entities like the ant, which is already very small. So
Prabhu,
there are certain living entities, Prabhuji, which are like so small, like the ant. So is the ant super soul also of the same size, or it is smaller, Prabhuji?
for ant you are asking, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
For everybody, the size proportionate to their one hand. Prabhu.
Okay.
That's the basic idea.
Okay.
Sloka number 9. Prashannabhaktram nalinayana dekshanam kadamba kinjala pishanga vashasham lasan maharatna kiranmayangadam spuran maharatna krida kundalam. Yes.
Translation: His mouth expresses his happiness, his eyes spread like the petals of a lotus, and his garments, yellowish like the saffron of a kadam flower, are bedecked with valuable jewels. His ornaments are all made of gold, set with jewels, and he wears a glowing headdress and earrings. Correction.
He has a happy mouth. He was dressed with nice yellow garments, etc. etc. He was bedecked with valuable jewels, etc. Unnitra kirpangacha karnikalaye yoke swarastapita pada pallavam Sri Lakshanam Kastubaratna Gandaram Amlana Lakshmiya Vanamala Yachidam.
His lotus feet are placed over the walls of the lotus-like hearts of great mystics. On his chest is the Kaustubha jewel engraved with the beautiful calf, and there are other jewels on his shoulders. His complete torso is garlanded with fresh flowers. Purport by Srila Prabhupada.
Yes,
The
yes.
ornaments, flowers, clothing, and all the other decorations on the transcendental body of the personality of Godhead are identical with the body of the Lord. None of them are made of material ingredients. Otherwise, there would be no chance of their decorating the body of the Lord. As such, in the Paravyoma, spiritual varieties are also distinguished from the material variegatedness.
Thanks. So the Lord is decorated with different transcendental jewels, beautiful clothings, etc. All are made of internal energy of the Supreme Lord. All are expansions of his internal energy. So Rupa Sakti, the Lord never uses material energy for his decoration at all. Text number 11. Ubhushitam meghalayang guliyahai mahadanair nupura ganganadibihi sniktamalang kunchita neelakundalai urochamanana hasapeshalam. Yes.
Translation: He is well decorated.
Translation. He is well.
Okay, Mataji, go on, Mataji.
Okay, go ahead, Prabhu.
Yes, same one.
He is well decorated with an. Okay, he is well decorated with an ornamental wreath about his waist and rings studded with velvet jewels on his fingers. His leglets, his bangles, his oiled hair, curling with a bluish tint, and his beautiful smiling face are all very pleasing. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the most beautiful person among all others, and Srila Sukadeva Goswami describes every part of his transcendental beauty one after another in order to teach the impersonalists that the personality of Godhead is not an imagination by the devotee for facility of worship, but is the Supreme Person in fact and figure. The impersonal feature of the Absolute Truth is but his radiation, as the sun rays are but radiations from the sun. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So the Lord is not impersonal. He is a transcendental person decorated with so many beautiful transcendental ornaments. If he is impersonal, why this description comes? If he is impersonal, how he can be decorated with jewels, etc. Adina Leela Kasidekshanolashat Brubanga Samchuskita Buri Angraham Iksheda Chindamayam Yenamishwaram Yavan Manodaranayavadishtade.
Translation: The Lord's magnanimous pastimes and the glowing glancing of his smiling face are all indications of his extensive benediction. One must therefore concentrate on his transcendental form of the Lord as long as the mind can be fixed on him by meditation purpose. In Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is said that the impersonalist undergoes a series of difficult programs on account of his impersonal meditation, but the devotee, due to Lord's personal service, progresses very easily. Impersonal meditation is therefore a source of suffering for the impersonalist. Here, the devotee is an advantage over the impersonalist philosopher. The impersonalist is doubtful about the personal feature of the Lord, and therefore he always tries to meditate upon something which is not objective. For the reason there is an authentic statement in the Bhagavatam regarding the positive concentration of the mind on the factual form of the Lord. The process of meditation recommended here is Bhakti Yoga, or the process of devotional service after one is liberated from the material conditions. Jnana Yoga is the process of liberation from the material conditions after one is liberated from the conditions of material existence, that is, when one is nivritta, as previously stated herein, or when one is freed from all material necessities. One becomes qualified to discharge the process of Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Bhakti Yoga includes Jnana Yoga. In other words, the process of pure devotional service simultaneously serves the purpose of Jnana Yoga because liberation from material condition is automatically achieved by the gradual development of pure devotional service. These effects of Bhakti Yoga are called anarth nivritti. Things which are artificially required gradually disappear along with the progress of Bhakti Yoga. Meditation on the lotus of the personality of Godhead, the first processional step must show its effect by anarth nivritti. The grossest type of anarth which binds the conditioned soul in material existence is sex desire. And this sex desire gradually develops in the union of the male and the female. When the male and female are united, the sex desire is further aggravated by the accumulation of buildings, children, friends, relatives, and wealth. When all these are acquired, the conditioned soul becomes overwhelmed by such entanglements, and the false sense of egoism or the sense of myself and mine becomes prominent. And the sex desire expands to various political, social, altruistic, philanthropic, and many unwanted engagements, resembling the foam of the sea waves, which becomes very prominent at one time, and at the next moment vanishes as quickly as a cloud in the sky. The conditioned soul is encircled by such products as well as products of sex desire, and therefore Bhakti Yoga leads to gradual evaporation of sex desire, which is summarized in three headings, namely profit, adoration, and distinction. All conditioned souls are mad after these different forms of sex desire, and one shall see for himself how much he has been freed from such material hankerings based primarily on the sex desire. As a person feels his hunger satisfied after eating each morsel of food stuff, he must similarly be able to see the degree to which he has been freed from sex desire.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Fine. So here again, we speak about the meditation on the advantages of the meditation in the form of the Lord. The Lord is personal. That was established in the previous sloka. That is the reason he has different angas, limbs, and all the limbs are decorated with different transcendental instruments like gems, rings, clothings, etc. So by meditating on the form of the Lord, we all get purified. Especially it is recommended for the neophyte devotees who are known as Kanishta Adhikari. So it is recommended. Sukadeva was a very advanced devotee, but he also recommends deity worship for the neophyte candidates of Bhakti Yoga. So the form of the Lord worship in the temple is transcendental, not any material form. So here, the jnani, he meditates on the impersonal form of the Lord. But when he becomes a qualified jnani, Brahmabhuta Prashanatma, Nachosati, Nakangsati, he accepts the process of Bhakti Yoga. He becomes a devotee. So naturally, in the process of Bhakti, the process of jnana is already included. Bhakti will automatically give the results of jnana marga also, liberation. Liberation is automatically achieved. So when you speak of liberation, anartha nivritti, basically it refers to freedom from sexual desire. So Prabhupada speaks so much about freedoms from sexual desire in the remaining three platforms. The basic desire for a conditioned soul is sexual desire, and it is exhibited in different forms like desire for name, fame, buildings, etc., etc. So one should test his advancement by checking the point that how much he has been freed from sexual desire. So surely, Krishna consciousness is so powerful. Surely, it will relieve oneself from the problems of sexual desire. So Srila Prabhupada warns about sannyasi ashram also. In the beginning, brahmacharis and vanaprasthas are advised to lead a simple form of life. But at the same time, unless otherwise one is completely freed from sexual desire, one is never recommended to take up the ashram of sannyas. It is very dangerous. It's very dangerous. But by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, especially by hearing the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is compared to the face of the Supreme Lord, surely one will get a relief of the materialistic sexual desires. Yekaikaso angni diyanubhagya bhavayet padadi yavat dashidam gadavrataka jidam sthanam abho yadarayet param suddhayati dirghada yada.
Translation. The process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord and progress to his smiling face. The meditation should be concentrated upon the lotus feet, then the calves, and then the thighs, and in this way higher and higher. The more the mind becomes fixed upon the different parts of the limbs, one after another, the more the intelligence becomes purified. Purport. The process of meditation recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam is not to fix one's attention on something impersonal or void. The meditation should concentrate on the person of the Supreme Godhead, either in his Virat Rupa, the gigantic universal form, or in his Satchit Ananda Vigraha, as described in the scriptures. There are authorized descriptions of Vishnu forms, and there are authorized representations of deities in the temples. Thus, one can practice meditating upon the deity, concentrating his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord, and gradually rising higher and higher up to his smiling face. Shall I continue, Prabhuji?
Yes, one more paragraph.
According to the Bhagavata school, the Lord's rasa dancing is the smiling face of the Lord. Since it is recommended in this verse that one should gradually progress from the lotus feet up to the smiling face, we shall not jump at once to understand the Lord's pastimes in the rasa dance. It is better to practice concentrating our attention by offering flowers and tulsi to the lotus feet of the Lord. In this way, we gradually become purified by the Archana process. We dress the Lord, bathe him, etc. And all these transcendental activities help us purify our existence. When we reach the higher standard of purification, if we see the smiling face of the Lord or hear the rasa dance pastimes of the Lord, then we can relish his activities. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, the rasa dance pastimes are delineated in the 10th canto.
Thanks, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So
Hare
in the last chapter, we studied about the meditation on the Virat form of the Lord, recommended for the neophyte devotee. Then in this particular chapter, Sukadeva started speaking about meditation on the super soul form of the Supreme Lord. So Srila Prabhupada here we all are studying about the descriptions of the super soul. Srila Prabhupada recommends the meditation on the deity also for the neophyte devotees. In fact, we have 3 levels of devotees known as Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. The Kanishta Adhikari is recommended to serve the different forms of the deities again and again. In that way, he will get purified. He will dress the Lord, he will bathe the Lord, he will make arrangement for the offerings of the Lord, like that. So surely, he should meditate on the form of the deity also. But the meditation should begin from lotus feet. Then gradually, one should come to the stage of meditating on the face of the Lord. And that is the reason in ISKCON we have the methodology of. Actually, the process of Sravanam and Kirtanam are recommended for highly elevated souls, Paramahamsas. So in ISKCON, we have parallel processes. We have the process of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy name of the Lord. Parallelly, we have the process of worshipping the deity also. We all assembled in the temple hall do kirtan in front of the deities, meditating on the form of the deities. That is also needed for the advancement of the neophyte devotees. Yavanna jayeda para avarayesmin Visvesara Dasadari Bhakti Yoga Tavat Sabiyaka Purushasya Rubam Kriya Vashani Prayadanaka Sumreda. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, shall I read? Okay, I'll add it. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. Purport. The Supreme Lord is the seer of all worlds, both material and transcendental. In other words, the Supreme Lord is the ultimate beneficiary and enjoyer of all the worlds, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 5.29. The spiritual world is the manifestation of his internal potency, and the material world is the manifestation of his external potency. The living entities are also his marginal potency, and by their own choice, they can live in either the transcendental or material worlds. The material world is not fit place for living entities because they are spiritually one with the Lord. And in the material world, the living entities become conditioned by the laws of material world. The Lord wants all living entities who are his part and parcels to live with him in the transcendental world. And for enlightening conditioned souls in the material world, all the Vedas and revealed scriptures are there, especially to recall the conditioned soul back home, back to Godhead. Unfortunately, the conditioned living entities, although suffering continually.
Enough, Prabhu. This second paragraph also expresses the same meaning.
Okay.
So what happens here? Srila Prabhupada speaks about the entanglement of the living entities in material world. So material world is not a suitable place for living. So we should go back to the spiritual world. Unfortunately, the neophyte spiritualists known as impersonalists are not interested in rendering service to the Supreme Lord. We all have the influence of impersonalism in the neophyte stage. So naturally, we all are recommended to meditate on the broad form of the Lord, which purifies our impersonalism mood. Then we come to the stage of meditating on the super soul form of the Lord. Then we all are recommended to worship the deity form of the Lord. Then finally, we revive our original, eternal, loving, devotional service spirit towards the Supreme Lord. So still that particular stage, we all are recommended to meditate either on the broad form of the Lord or super soul form of the Lord, at least in the neophyte stage of devotional service. We all are recommended to meditate on the deity form of the Lord. Once we got completely purified, based on our relationship, we will completely immerse ourselves in the process of Shravanam and Kirtanam. Up to that stage, this meditation is needed. Stiram Sugam Shashanam Astido Yadir Yada Jijasat Mamangalokam Kale Chadese Manona Sanjayet Prana Niyetshe Manasa Jidasuhu.
Translation. O King, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place, but should comfortably sit without being disturbed, and regulating the life air should control senses by the mind. Purport.
1 minute. From here onwards, again, Sukadev speaks about the methodology of Krama Yogi, who will meditate on the super soul. So how he has to make preparations for meditating on the super soul is explained. But Prabhupada, on parallel line, he will translate everything from the perspective of devotional service. So one should not get confused. Okay, Prabhupada, you can go on reading.
In the Bhagavad Gita 8.14, it is clearly stated that a person who is totally engaged in a transcendental loving service of the Lord and who constantly remembers him at every step easily obtains the mercy of the Lord by entering into his personal contact. Such devotees do not need to seek an opportune moment to leave the present body. But those who are mixed devotees, alloyed with furtive action or empirical philosophical speculation, require an opportune moment for quitting this body. For them, the opportune moments are stated in Bhagavad Gita 8.23 to 26. But these opportune moments are not as important as one's being a successful yogi who is able to quit his body as he likes. Such a yogi must be competent to control his senses by the mind. The mind is easily conquered simply by engaging it at the lotus feet of the Lord. Gradually, by self-service, all the senses become automatically engaged in service of the Lord. That is the way of merging into the Supreme Absolute. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So the original sloka speaks about the preliminary yama niyama practices followed by the Bhakti Misra yogi. But Srila Prabhupada, so naturally he has to follow that particular process. He should select the proper place, he should select the proper time here for sitting, for doing meditation. But Srila Prabhupada speaks about the glories of devotional service. The devotional service can be practiced anywhere, everywhere, by any kind of person. One can chant one can chant the holy name of the Lord in a very ideal place like Rishikesh also. One is expected to chant in the same style in the deserts of Arabia also. It doesn't matter. But a yogi cannot do that. He has to select a proper place in the Himalayas, etc., etc. So Prabhupada, using that particular point, he speaks about the glories of devotional service, path of pure devotional service, Ananya Bhakti. Sloka 16. What the yogi does, we will see.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
Prabhuji, difference between yogi and devotee. So during solar eclipse or lunar eclipse, during eclipse, Prabhuji, Grahan. During eclipse, solar eclipse, or
Yes.
so does devotee change anything, his regular lifestyle, or is same, Prabhuji, during eclipse time?
Solar eclipse time?
Yes, Prabhuji, or lunar also, Prabhuji.
Because since we are following deity worship, we close the temples during the time of lunar or solar eclipse. That is recommended. But as far as hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or chanting the holy names of the Lords are concerned, that can be practiced always, anywhere and everywhere. Point is clear?
Okay.
Yeah. Since we follow deity worship, we close the temples because that rule has to be followed.
So, Prabhu, do we close all ISKCON temple in India? Because sometime
during the time of Grahana, we close na. In our calendars, certain Grahanas are coming. That time we close our temple deities. Then after purifying the deities, everything cleaned with kusa grass and Ganges water. Then again revive our activities in our temple.
Okay.
It's a system followed in all Indian temples.
Yeah, because we can see in Singapore, I've never seen that it's closed.
Yeah.
The lunar eclipse.
But for Sravanam Kirtanam, there is no obstacle.
Yeah.
Right. Managaswa Buddhya Malayan Yam Kshetra Nyayedan Nanayetam Atmani Atmanam Atmani Avrudyadiro Lobo Bashandi Brahmeda Krityat. Yes.
Translation. Thereafter, the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity and then merge the living entity into the super self. And by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction so that he ceases from all other activities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada.
Read the purport, Mataji. So some technical. Yeah.
The functions of the mind are thinking, feeling, and willing. When the mind is materialistic or absorbed in material contact, it acts for material advancement of knowledge, destructively ending in discovery of nuclear weapons. But when the mind acts under spiritual urge, it acts wonderfully for going back home, back to Godhead, for life in complete bliss and eternity. Therefore, the mind has to be manipulated by good and unalloyed intelligence. Perfect intelligence is to render service unto the Lord. One should be intelligent enough to understand that the living being is, in all circumstances, a servant of the circumstances. Every living being is serving the dictates of desire, anger, lust, illusion, insanity, and enviousness, all materially affected. But even while executing such dictations of different temperaments, he is perpetually unhappy. When one actually feels this and turns his intelligence to inquiring about it from the right sources, he gets information of the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Instead of serving materially for the above mentioned different humors of the body, the living entity's intelligence then becomes freed from the unhappy illusion of materialistic temperament. And thus, by unalloyed intelligence, the mind is brought into the service of the Lord. The Lord and his service are identical, being on the absolute plane. Therefore, the unalloyed intelligence and the mind are merged into the Lord. And thus, the living entity does not remain a seer himself, but becomes seen by the Lord transcendentally. When the living entity is directly seen by the Lord dictates him to act according to his desire. And when the living entity follows him perfectly, the living entity ceases to discharge any other duty for his illusory satisfaction. In his pure, unalloyed state, the living being attains the stage of full bliss, labdho pashanti, and ceases all material hankerings.
Again, the original sloka speaks about the position of Labdhobasanti in the platform of Bhakti Misra Yoga. He is a yogi. So naturally, here, by the preliminary purification of the mind, he merges the living entity into the super self. In that way, he become situated in the super stage of satisfaction. But Srila Prabhupada writes how this particular stage is automatically achieved in the process of Bhakti Yoga. So in the process, naturally he explains about the functions of mind also. Mind has the function of thinking, feeling, and willing. So when it is under the control of material energy, it thinks everything under the dictation of the external energy of the Supreme Lord. But in that condition, he is not so happy. But when he is completely purified, he connects his intelligence with the instructions of the super soul. So in that particular stage, he is able to receive direct instructions from the super soul. He acts for the happiness of the super soul or Supreme Lord. In that way, he attains supreme stage of full of bliss. That is known as Labdhobasanti. We will see how Prabhupada writes what about in the next sloka. Nayetra kalo nimisham paraka prabhu kudo nadeva jakadam yogi sire nayetra sattvam narjastamacha na Vaibhava na mahan pradhanam. Only a translation. I am tired. Then we will continue our class tomorrow. Somebody can read the translation.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Translation. In that transcendental state of Labdho Pasanti, there is no supremacy of devastating time, which controls even the celestial demigods who are empowered to rule over mundane creatures. And what to speak of the demigods themselves? Nor is there the mode of material goodness, nor patience, nor ignorance, nor even the false ego, nor the material causal ocean, nor the material nature.
Thanks. So it's a continuation of the previous verse. The conditions of Labdhobasanti are explained. But that we will study surely this purport tomorrow. I'm so much affected by the rain here and heavy traffic here actually. Sorry, I wind up the class 15 minutes before actually. Tomorrow we will continue with our discussions from sloka number 17 onwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vacha alpadravyasa, Vivasandhvi evacha, Naditanam bhavnebhya, Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha.